I was the most junior human in that chamber, by a distance so wide it was almost funny. 6 years at the Earth Mission's signals post inside the Sovrani Hegemonic Deliberative Council. 6 years of transcribing session logs, filing transit queries, watching the counselors arrange themselves in their ceremonial tiers, like something that had decided, long ago, that it was the fixed center of everything. I had watched delegations from 11 other species walk into that chamber with leverage, and walk out with nothing. I had transcribed their capitulations into the permanent record in the Sovrani's own glyph notation, the way the system required, the way it had always required, as though the requiring itself was a form of power. The morning of the session I am describing, our senior attaché was grounded at the secondary transit hub, 2 systems out. Equipment fault, communications degraded. He had sent me a short message the evening prior: attend in his place, receive whatever was filed, sign the receipt, return. Routine. Nothing about that morning looked routine from the outside. The chamber was full in a way it rarely was. All 9 senior counselors present, which happened perhaps 4 times a year, the public gallery sealed to outside observers, the session recorder, an older Sovrani functionary named Valath Sur, who had never once looked directly at me in 6 years, was at his station, with 2 subordinates beside him, rather than the customary one. The holographic display above the central floor was active before the session opened, cycling through what I recognized as jurisdictional maps of the outer transit corridors. Our corridors. I sat at the Earth Mission's assigned table. 1 human, 1 chair, 1 notepad. Council Primary Davin Vorath opened the session without the standard greeting. He was a tall Sovrani, pale gray scaled, with the elongated ridge above the brow that indicated the senior lineage. His voice carried the particular flatness that I had learned, over 6 years, meant that whatever was about to be said had been rehearsed many times, and that the speaker found the rehearsal satisfying. He said that the Sovrani Hegemonic Deliberative Council had, by unanimous decision, at its closed session the previous evening, ratified what he called the Instrument of Termination of Human Provisional Presence. He said it the way someone says something they expect to be remembered for. He enumerated its terms at length. All Earth Mission credentials within Sovrani jurisdiction were revoked, effective close of session. All Earth Mission posts, installations, and material assets within Sovrani space were subject to hegemonic seizure and inventory, effective 24 hours from the session's formal close. The Sovrani Hegemony declared a state of active interdiction against Earth Mission vessels operating within its outer corridors. He called it, at one point, a necessary clarification of the jurisdictional reality. I wrote it down, all of it, in the Sovrani glyph notation, the way the system required. When he finished, the chamber was the particular kind of quiet that is not quiet at all, but is instead a room full of beings waiting to hear something break. There were 47 Sovrani present in that chamber, between the counselors and the administrative observers and the functionaries in the gallery. I had counted when I arrived, from habit. Valath Sur looked at me for the first time in 6 years. I stood. I thanked the session recorder for the filing. I confirmed receipt of the Instrument of Termination on behalf of the Earth Mission, and I signed the receipt form in 2 places, which is what the filing protocol required. Then I folded my notepad and picked up my case. Council Primary Vorath said, in a tone that had lost some of its rehearsed flatness, was I not going to respond? I said, the Earth Mission accepts the instrument as filed. I said, the mission's vacating schedule, per the instrument's own Section 7 protocol, would be transmitted to the Hegemonic Records Office before end of day. I said, we had appreciated the 6 years. Then I walked out. The doors sealed behind me. I did not look back, because there was nothing behind me that I needed to see. What I knew, and what the chamber full of Sovrani counselors did not yet know, was this. The Earth Mission had maintained 22 posts inside Sovrani jurisdiction. They had also maintained, over the preceding 11 years, a separate operational network of relay stations and survey anchors at points that predated the Sovrani's own outer boundary demarcations, filed, every one of them, under the Interstellar Survey Continuity Instrument that the Earth Mission's predecessor body had registered with the Joint Transit Authority before the Hegemonic Deliberative Council had ratified its own outer boundary claims. Those posts were not inside Sovrani jurisdiction. They had never been inside Sovrani jurisdiction. The boundary demarcations, when they were drawn, had stopped short of them by a margin so fine it required a dedicated legal filing to measure. That filing existed. It had been in the Joint Transit Authority's records for 11 years. No one at the Sovrani Legal Chamber had ever requested it, because no one at the Sovrani Legal Chamber had ever needed it. The Earth mission had not drawn attention to it. The 22 posts inside Sovrani space were already vacated by the time the hegemonic seizure teams arrived. Vacated in correct order, in the sequence the instrument's own Section 7 protocol specified, with inventory logs attached and filed, because the Earth mission had been preparing those logs for 4 months, and because that was what the protocol required, and because we did what was required of us. The teams found clean rooms and correct paperwork. Nothing more. The relay network outside Sovrani jurisdiction was fully operational within 48 hours. The senior attaché had pre-positioned the last 3 anchor units 11 months prior. I had filed the placement notices myself, in the Joint Transit Authority's standard format, during a slow week in what had otherwise been a quiet year. No one had queried them. They were routine filings. Everything we did was routine until it wasn't. The trade corridors are where it gets difficult to describe without sounding like I am narrating something I do not regret. The Sovrani Hegemony's outer corridor access had been governed, for the preceding 19 years, by a transit compact that required the continuous presence of an accredited Earth mission signals post as the corridor's joint authority verification node. This was a technical requirement, not a political one. The compact had been written that way because, at the time it was written, the Earth mission's signals infrastructure was the most reliable in that corridor band, and the Sovrani's legal body had insisted on binding the compact's verification mechanism to a specific class of accredited installation, rather than to a general principle, because that was how the Sovrani's legal body preferred to write compacts. It was thorough, it was precise. It had seemed, at the time, entirely in the Sovrani's favor. When the Instrument of Termination revoked all Earth mission credentials within Sovrani jurisdiction, it revoked the accreditation of the signals post that served as the outer corridor's verification node. When the signals post was vacated under the instrument's own Section 7 protocol, the verification node went dark. When the verification node went dark, the Transit Compact's continuous presence clause triggered an automatic suspension of corridor access, pending restoration of the accredited node. There was no longer an accredited Earth mission node inside Sovrani jurisdiction to restore. The Sovrani Legal Chamber issued its internal analysis 11 days after the session. I did not read it firsthand. I read it because a Sovrani functionary, not Velath Sur, a younger one, someone I had never met, transmitted a copy to the Earth mission's outer relay network, with a brief note asking whether we anticipated restoration of corridor verification in the near term. I drafted the response. I showed it to the senior attaché, who had returned from the transit hub by then. He read it and changed nothing. We transmitted. The Earth mission had no current operations within Sovrani jurisdiction, per the Instrument of Termination as filed. Corridor verification would require an accredited installation. Accreditation requirements were governed by the Transit Compact's own terms. We wished the Hegemonic Legal Chamber well in its review. The senior attaché told me, when I sent it, that I had used more words than necessary. He was right. The message could have been one line. The corridors did not reopen for a long time. I do not know what the Sovrani Deliberative Council said to each other in the weeks that followed. I was not there to transcribe it. I was at the relay station outside their reach, doing the work, the way I had always done the work, filing the logs, keeping the record, making sure everything was in its correct place at the correct time, which is what the position required, and what, in the end, turned out to matter more than anything else. 47 of them in that chamber, 9 senior counselors, a sealed gallery, a session recorder who had looked at me for the first time in 6 years. One of me. I signed the receipt in 2 places and said we had appreciated the 6 years. That was enough.